So I had this guy ask me a really good question, and he said, "How do you go about finding a job coding the way you do?" Because it's not necessarily the mainstream way of coding. The mainstream way of coding right now is using bloated frameworks, which I oppose. So how would I even go about finding a job if I don't use these bloated frameworks? And my answer to that is I've been doing this for so long that they don't tell me how to code anymore. I tell them how to code. You understand? Like in my worldview, I could be wrong, but I'm just saying, like, in my worldview, I think that I'm right and they're wrong the way they code. I think it's bloated. I think it's not good for the business. A lot of the times CEOs that don't know anything, managers, CEOs and stuff like that, they don't know anything about coding. And so they go with whatever their lead developers tell them to do. And most of the time, the lead developers are completely brainwashed with whatever's trending. So the lead developers themselves don't really have a clue on what's right and what's wrong. They just go with whatever's trending, but whatever's trending isn't necessarily right, So I guess my point is that I code the way I do based on many years of experience. And I'll show you today. We're going to look at this calendar thing that I wrote, and it's very simple. It's just dumb code. And it's like, I'll show you my code, and then I'll show you what is currently considered to be kind of like popular code in the industry. And you can decide for yourself which one you like better. Okay? Because this isn't really, the question here isn't really like what's, like, I don't want to code because, something is trending. I want to code what's right, not what's trending. You understand? So I'm going to explain to you my philosophy in this video, and you can decide for yourself what you like better. So right here we have, this is called React Calendar, and this is pretty serious amounts of downloads. Look at this, weekly downloads, 369,000. This is almost like mainstream type of code, and I don't like the way they coded it. Even though there's a lot of people that use this, I just don't think this is good code. Now, I'm not saying that the person that did this is like, I'm not saying that they're not smart or anything. They could be very, very smart. Okay. If you look at the source code, it's pretty, it's very complex. It's there. You had to be a smart person to do this. But that's my issue with this code, is that you made it too smart. You over-engineered it. Look at this, for example. Look at this code. For example, like what we're trying to do here is create this calendar, right? Now they have like an online demo here. Let me look. And you can see for yourself what it looks like. So it looks kind of like this. And you can, change dates and do all this stuff. And, you have a few different views and stuff like this. But it's just not, well, let me get into this. So if I look at the source code to this, okay, and people are downloading this left, right, and center, right? You see like a ton of downloads here, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. So if I look at the source code to this, okay, when I look at the source code to this, look at how many files to do something so trivial as like this calendar. Okay, we're creating this calendar. Look at how many files you have here. Okay, like, well, let's go to the source. Files everywhere, for every view, for every, a lot of different syntaxes. Like if I go to the code itself, you'll see like there's this thing called a tile, and in every different file there's going to be more and more syntaxes. If you looked at my previous video entitled, like it was called Avoid Shakespearean Languages, this is a Shakespearean language because he's just defining a lot of different types. Okay, a lot of different types of types. Well, here, let me show you. Like, let me go to I mean, this is like the main file, I think. I mean, how do you even know what the main file is, right? There's like a ton of files here. But you'll see that there's, I mean, look at this. It's ridiculous. A year view, a decade view, a century view, a lot of different syntax, right? By creating types, you create now a lot of different words that people would have to go to the definition of what a month view is. It's somewhere in the source code, right? I'd have to look at what a month view is, what parameters it takes, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't, for the life of me, it would take me so long to use this or to figure out how to use this code that it wouldn't be worth it. I mean, look at all these hundreds of files, and this is not even it. I mean, if you go to the package.json, you'll see that there's like a ton of dependencies as well, right? So he's using like all these, I mean, React for one, right? That's a huge dependency. Okay. Now, why do I even care about this source code? Okay. I mean, can I just use this thing without knowing how this works? Can I just use it in my program? No, and I'll show you why. Now, one thing that you'll find as you create software is that if you use some kind of component, okay, the microsecond you finish, putting it inside your program, your client or whoever you're creating this for will be like, oh, that's nice, but can it do this? And they'll want something that this thing doesn't have. Let's say, they want it for this hotels.com. They wanted some kind of calendar or something. This is just an example, but like, see how they have it now where this is like a split screen calendar and, it has like a range functionality. This is what happens. They're going to come back at you. The client will come back at you and be like, hey, but can it do this? I want range and I want split screens and I want this and that. And you're sitting there with the calendar that you just, used, and you're like, I don't know if it has that functionality. I'll check. And maybe this thing does have that functionality. I'm not sure. But just note that it's like you will never satisfy the requirements completely. They'll come back at you, even if it does have this split screen thing. They'll come back at you and they'll say, that's nice, but can you add like a few pictures of some dogs and cats into it? And can you put like some like bullet points and, add it? Like they'll make you customize the heck out of it. And so when you use somebody's code, like components, you will undoubtedly have to customize it. And that right there is the crux of the problem. So when you do need to eventually customize this, which you will, because, they always have you customize stuff. Maybe you'll have to change the look of it, to go with the theme of the app that you're making it for. Maybe you'll have to, add functionality. As I said, maybe the client has different requirements for it. Now you're sitting here with this bloated code that has so many files that the only person that really understands this code would be the author of this. And it looks like there's like 9 contributors here. Like there's so many, like look at all this code. How are you you're going to have to customize this. And so good luck with all these files and with the compilation and with the React, and are you using the right version of React and blah, blah, blah. It takes forever. And in my 20s, I used to do stuff like this. I used to, in the languages that I used to use, like C#, Java, stuff like that. It was the same type of code. It was just this bloated kind of mess, so to speak. And because I was doing that for so many years, I'm so sensitive to the time that it takes away from my life when I do stuff like this. So that now, when I code, it has to be 0 dependencies, the smallest amount of code possible, and that's all I'm interested in. And let me show you an example. Now, I'll have a link to this source code so you can see it for yourself. But this is my calendar. I mean, I basically have the main functionality of a calendar. where you can pick a date. It'll show you, what you selected last, and it'll show you the current date with a, blue background and stuff like that, and you can change it. Blah, 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 basic date picker, right? But here's the thing. I created this, and so I have full control over everything. I know everything about the source code here. I could make cats. I could do bullet points. I could do little notes. I could change the squares to bigger squares. I can customize the heck out of this, and it would be nothing for me because I know how the code works, right? And another thing is that, look at this. It's just one function, right? I have function calendar, and that's all. I have no dependencies to anything. I don't have dependency. This is all, you won't find any, it doesn't use any outside things. This is just vanilla JavaScript, CSS, HTML. It's so simple. And the fact that this whole thing, goes into just one function, it's so much easier than having to go through so many files and figuring out how, all those different components and types work together and how they communicate and all this stuff. Now, this is the way I coded it. Okay, you don't have to code it this way, but I just want to, let's go over like just the main bullet points of what I'm trying to do here. So the first thing to keep in mind is, again, this is just a single function. I don't like it when there's like a ton of files for something so trivial as a component like this. It doesn't deserve so many files. It doesn't deserve so many like configuration files and all. These are just a pile of boxes that I could easily declare in one little function like this. Now, by the way, if you notice that I have this function calendar, when I capitalize the first letter, that's just a notation to note that I plan on instantiating it. And when you instantiate a function in JavaScript, see, so this is a function calendar. When I go new on calendar, it will turn into an object. Okay, it will turn into this cal. Now let's look at this cal thing for a second. So this is the object that essentially it created. After we did the new, now I just have, these are the functions that make up this calendar. In it will be the first function that gets called. That's what essentially builds this HTML up. But I won't get into the specifics of this. It's pretty trivial code. What I mean is that you could probably look at this and figure out how this kind of works like. But I just want to talk about the high level of what I'm trying to do here. So again, as I said, everything is contained within one function. Next, this thing, because I don't have any dependencies, because it's just one little function, and yes, I could put this in a file called calendar.js or something, whatever. But this will last forever. It'll last for many, 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 way longer than this React calendar. I can bet on that, because what happens in 20 years from now when either React doesn't exist, or maybe there's React version 100 or something. I don't even know. But will it run this calendar? Who knows? Maybe it won't be backwards compatible. Maybe there's just, because the thing is, because if you use so many dependencies here, you don't know what's going to happen with this code in the future. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. Who knows? But when I'm the one that writes it, and it's just a single function like this, just vanilla JavaScript that has no dependencies, this will last forever. And guess what? Companies prefer this type of stuff. I think, just for the business of the company. I'm not talking about what programmers hire you for the trending, whatever the trending library is. I'm just saying, for the business itself, I can bet that CEOs and businesses would prefer it being completely in-house. There's no dependencies, there's no licenses, whatever. I don't even know. It's simple. It's just a function. I could change this function any way I wanted to. So I think that overall it's also better for the business. Now, as I said, because this is my code here, I can customize it any way I want to. I can change this up to be quad calendar. I could, add any type of customization to this very easily, because it's just a single function and it's within one file and there's no dependencies. Now, another thing that you'll find that when you use other people's code is that, or other people's bloated frameworks, you're using Facebook's React, where they probably have everything but the kitchen sink in there, is that you're using a lot of dependencies, or you're using a lot of stuff that you might not even use in your program. I mean, look at this one. This is a Hello World Angular app that takes 300 megabytes. I would never have something that takes so much. I mean, this calendar thing that I showed you, maybe it's like a few kilobytes, Or like, look at this one. The size of this React app is growing to hundreds of megabytes. And you can find a ton of these types of posts on Stack Overflow. Just look for like bundle size is huge, or, React or Angular is huge. And so that to me is just terrible coding. I mean, I would not do this to a business. I would not like just give them some version of React and just be like, okay, well, have fun with this. But a lot of coders are doing this these days to companies, and they don't understand the ramifications that happen. And a lot of the times, the as I said, the managers, CEOs, stuff like that, they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever you think is good, Mr. Programmer. But the programmers are just doing whatever everybody else is doing, whatever's trending. It's not necessarily efficient. It's not necessarily good code. It's just whatever is trending. And I have to put my foot down. That's just not the way I want to code. This thing, this calendar, I'm not going to give it more than one function, okay? Like this is like, I don't know, a few kilobytes. That's all you're taking, okay? You're not getting any more than that. You're not going to have dependencies and hundreds of megabytes and all that stuff. It's just, it wastes space. It wastes time. It's not good for the business. It's just like, there's unlimited reasons why I don't like this kind of code, or, the framework type of code, I mean. Now, one thing I just want to talk about the code itself. I just want to talk about this one little character. Okay, this character right here, I don't know exactly what it's called, whatever the heck it's called, like a tick or something. You can find that out somewhere on your keyboard. Basically, I have a different keyboard, so it's like upper right on my keyboard. But anyway, this is called a string literal, and this changed my life. This one character, okay? I call this how to replace React with one character. That's what I love about this thing. And what it did is it just, allows you to specify a string, and then just like have these variables within it. This is how you essentially include, some kind of outside variable into this string. It's very simple. That's the kind of stuff that I like. I'm definitely looking at, new ways that that JavaScript changes. I'm not saying like, you should be you should not look for any modern things with the languages. You should definitely look for things that help you out. But you don't have to gravitate towards everything that they feed you, because a lot of this stuff is just, I showed you how bloated it can get. Just go with, this is the one character that I like, like the things that JavaScript added. That's about all I need. Now, if you look, you'll see that I added my slogan to the banner of my channel. Everything is a box. It took me many years to come up with this idea, and the moment you start seeing programming as this, you can create anything. This implies a lot of things. Okay, this implies that everything is typeless as well. Because when I create these boxes, when I see everything as boxes, I can, and if you look at my code, you'll see that I don't use a lot of syntax. Okay. I can't stand a bunch of complicated syntax. You'll see that most of what I use here is var. I don't even use let or const or any of these crazy syntaxes. I try to minimize the syntax as much as possible. Same with the components. You'll never see me use components. It'll always just be div for the most part. I think in boxes, I program in boxes, and that's the nice thing about being typeless is that you don't create types. Creating types, I'm telling you, for more than 2 decades of coding now, is the worst idea ever, but it appeals to junior programmers. They think that that's going to help them with reusability, but it doesn't. And I'll make videos in the future about that more. But it doesn't help with anything. It's the worst idea ever when you start creating types. I mean, they got rid of types in code, right? Like for the most part, we just have var. But in UI, for some reason, they're still using types, and it doesn't help with anything. So, you know, if I were to inspect this thing, you'll see that everything here is a box, right? The whole component, even this thing is a box. Everything is a box. And that's just the way I like to view the code. And one thing you'll ask yourself is like, why don't other programmers think in terms of boxes? And the answer is very simple. They don't want to become designers. Okay? They would prefer reusing everything than dealing with design. Okay, I've had this conversation with many programmers throughout the years, and like their programmers are so anti like anything that has to do with art. They will almost never want to deal with this amount of detail. Okay, they don't want to do that. They'd rather just reuse components. But the problem with reusing components, as I said, is that it's going to be so hard for you to customize, and you'll be spending all your time trying to customize it. Days and days and months and years. I see how long it takes programmers to do anything these days. And it's because they're trying to customize something that was a terrible idea in the first place, with all the types and components and all that stuff, and the compilation and the millions of files. And if you think in terms of boxes, you won't have that problem. But just note that you will have to deal with art. Oh no, right? You will have to deal with design. It's all about design. Okay? And one of the things I always liked about Steve Jobs is that he always emphasized design, how important it is for everything to be kind of pixel perfect in a way. If you look at this control, you'll see that the spaces that I have, you know, the way that things are aligned, there's balance here. And that's really what it's all about, is how to align things in a correct way. You'll see my video entitled Box Ninja. I kind of talk about, this is kind of like using the stuff that I talked about in that video, but just, you know, creating something a little bit more advanced. Now, the majority of what you use in coding, okay, the majority of coding is just UI coding, that is just using components. I mean, if we looked at all the components that I have here, the calendar is probably the hardest, right? Everything else is just, I mean, look at this, trivial. Everything here, it's all trivial. Like dragging, like I've done this. It's all very, very. I'll have videos in the future about dragging stuff. But don't worry about using something that looks like, I mean, what if they wanted you to now have like this look horizontal, or this be like, you know, thicker or whatever? You have to get into the nitty gritty to be a good developer. You can't just use stuff like this. I would never use a library like this because it's so hard to customize. And what are we doing? We're just displaying boxes. You know, when you start reusing things, you'll get into the problems of bloated code bases, and you know, the hundreds of megabytes that I showed you in the Stack Overflow posts. But yeah, I will talk more in the future. I mean, I'm going to create more and more demos. Okay, that's a thing. That's another to answer your question. The guy that asked me about how do you go about coding the way you want to, you have to show people demos. That's the thing. They will never just take your word. Like, show them demos. You know, create a YouTube channel. Show them the stuff that you did, and you know, create as many demos as you can, and people will start appreciating the stuff that you can do, and then you can have opportunities everywhere. But yeah, just show people demos. Show people your source. Tell them about your philosophies of coding. As far as the languages, I've used lots of languages throughout my career. This stuff always changes, but this whole idea of like a box, that will carry me throughout my entire life. I promise you. Like the fact that I'm using typeless boxes doesn't matter if I'm using JavaScript or C++. It doesn't matter. Like it's the philosophy is going to be there forever. So yeah. Anyway, if you have any questions about the calendar, or you know, if you don't understand something in that source code, and I will link the source code, just ask me below in the comment section. And yeah, thanks for watching. All right, bye.